Well, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News with me and George. Evening, George.
G'day, Pat. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. You doing all right?
Yeah. No, not too bad. I mean, it's pissing down in, well, I imagine the South Island and probably the country.
Yeah.
But apart from that, yeah, things are all right.
We've had word today about this, actually. I thought we'd do a little bit of a look at, I mean, it kind of sounds like the most boring topic in the world to talk about. Hey, how's the weather? But actually, here in Dunedin, it's pretty crazy at the moment. What happens in Dunedin, there's some rivers that run through the centre of the city, and there's one of them that runs through the university as well, called the Leaf. And when that gets going for it, it really, really, really goes for it, and you get people kayaking on it. And I thought we'd give you a bit of an example. So this is the Leaf at the moment. Well, not at the moment, but earlier this afternoon. And I wanted to give you an example of what's actually happened. So let's just take a photo of that, right? So we can see that that's there. That part of the river, about 5 years ago, I attended a little event that they run every year where they run rubber ducks down there. And I've actually got that footage here. So this is the same part of the river during like a normal everyday sort of time. And you can see that there's lovely stones and there's lovely footpaths and there's a lovely bank. In the background there, if you're watching, that's actually the bridge that you can see in this other footage here, right? That bridge there. And as you can see, no footpath, no nothing, raging torrent of a river. And it's, right through the middle of the university. And every time this happens, I think we showed one just a couple of weeks ago, actually. There you go. There's the bridge. So that's the little flowing, those torrential rapids you can see there are actually that there on a normal day. And what happens is the fantastically crazy and energetic university students and local kayakers then turn this part of the river runs between the North Dunedin between two one-way systems. Normally the water going down there is about 1 meter to 1.5 meters wide, maybe 2 meters, and it's inches deep.
Yeah.
Right. And this is what it is after a good rain. It looks like the Hooker Falls. It actually looks like the Hooker Falls. So that's pretty, a pretty spectacular amount of water flowing through there now. Look at that. And those real skilled dudes on their kayaks, dudes and dudettes on their kayaks get out there and have a bit of fun. And I got to say, actually, I mean, the rain has been consistent today, but it hasn't been like torrential. But what's happened is last week it was torrential, and I was talking to my kids today about, you get a kitchen sponge, you put it in the water, you bring it up and it's full of water. When you pour more water on it, there's nothing to absorb it. So all the rain today has just turned into millions and millions and millions and millions of liters of overflow, and it's going bananas all over the place. So yeah, she's a crazy time. She's a wet time, and I don't think it's going to stop for the next couple of days. And wherever you are in the country, you can share a comment if you want on whatever platform you're watching us on. Tell us what the weather's like. It's a good talkback show. Tell us what the weather's like. So anyway, and how is it where you are, George? You're all safe and well and dry? You're all right?
Yeah. No leaks or anything. It's just worried for the places in Dunedin that have historically suffered when this sort of thing happens.
South Dunedin is a bad spot
as we've talked about on the show. Yeah, South Dunedin.
Yeah,
floods. Yeah.
And that was last time that flooded really badly a few years ago was because of the storm waters, actually. So we're not going to start a conversation around Three Waters right now. We might do because we've got a Mayoralty candidate coming up shortly. We might ask him about Three Waters. But there was some notices today that some in North Dunedin, which is predominantly where students are being evacuated tonight. So yeah, there's obviously either some flooding or danger of flooding. So that's where we're at. Now, speaking of danger, let's bring in Auckland Mayoralty candidate Craig Lord, because we want to have a chat with him about a very serious event tonight. Craig, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Pat. Long time no chat.
Yeah, I was just talking to George. Radio Sport News Talk ZB days, yeah? Way back when.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're getting old.
Yeah, you too, mate. I can see it up, I'm a bit higher.
Yeah, years have not been kind.
Lovely to see you. And I have seen your name floating around a little bit because you have been someone who has gone out for the Auckland Mayoralty a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, the last few times it's been around?
This is the second time, yeah.
Second time. Okay, and before we get on to the incredibly serious and dangerous incident that happened tonight, the drive-by, how come, why do you want to be Auckland's mayor?
Because I like fixing things, and I'm a sucker for punishment. Um, my whole life, I've always observed what other people do, and I see the good and the bad, and I analyze too much. I overanalyze, and I pick up on the bad things, and I think, well, what if I could do that better? And so I guess it's just who I am. It's back to my old days as an engineer. I'd always look at how people fix things or built things and go, well, hang on, can I do a better one of that or not? And I'd often give it a go. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I guess it's just, I don't know. I just want to fix it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I guess that's the right place to come from, it, isn't it? And what do you think in Auckland? When we're in Dunedin, but in Auckland, what are the things that are the kind of top priority that needs to be fixed?
Oh, for me, it's the council doesn't perform its core services properly. It's really bad at it, and it has too many financial inefficiencies inside the contractor system, the maintenance of the city. It's just we're bleeding money into that. So there's always different things that you could try and make better in any city or town. But for me, that's a really heavy duty one, is the amount of money we're pouring into the overseas contractors that look after it. It's ridiculous money, and it's got to stop. If we can sort that out, get those core services working properly,
Yeah.
if we can make the city work efficiently, then everybody else can just go about their daily lives and get on with it without having horrendous rates rises.
When you go out for mayor, it's kind of an all or nothing, yeah? Because like
Yeah,
it's not like you come second and then there's you get to be the vice mayor because you've come second. It's either you're the mayor or you're not the mayor. That's pretty much it, eh?
yeah. Councillors tend to tick two boxes. If they're running as a councillor, they'll also generally tick local board as well as a nomination, so that if they get enough votes for councillor, cool, they get in. If they don't, but they get enough for local board, they take the next level down. I don't ever remember a mayoral candidate also ticking councillor and local board to take the second or third option. You generally, I think that's the wrong message if they were to do that. Your goal is to be what it is, and there's no second place.
What we got to hear, and not that I told you we were going to talk about this, but it is one of the big local body elections. We're based in Dunedin, so we're going to have a series of conversations with Dunedin mayoralty candidates, some real localized stuff. But I haven't yet been able to ask a mayor or a candidate for mayor yet about Three Waters. Do you have a position on that? Is that something you're running on for or against or anything like that?
I'm very against it. I don't like the idea of assets being taken away to bump up other areas. It's not fair. So Auckland City has spent 150 years building up its water assets, its systems, its infrastructure. It's worth billions of dollars, and because the government can't afford, because they've been spending money in stupid places, because they can't afford their infrastructure funding to assist smaller councils, whether those smaller councils can't raise the money or whether they don't have the expertise to look after their own water systems. And there's really only a couple of them that seem to be struggling. Because the government can't do that, they've decided, oh, hang on, let's just take the assets of everyone else from around the country, put them all together, give them virtually nothing in return for it, use that as an asset to borrow money to fix other people's problems. Sad that other people have got the problems, but I don't agree that Auckland Council's assets should be stripped when they're so valuable for such a pittance. And the other problem I've got is co-governance. I do not like co-governance.
What are there many running for mayor? Like, it sounds like you put forward quite a strong case, and I haven't invited you on to talk about this, so we won't get into the quid pro quos and what the public health experts are saying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But are you finding that most candidates that are running in Auckland, because obviously Auckland's got the biggest three water system, are mostly against it, or are there a split between those who are for and against?
At this stage, there's basically 5 predominant mayoral candidates.
Yep.
Fingers crossed, 3 of those other ones will drop out and there'll just be 2 of us, myself and Efeso Collins, who is under the Labour ticket. He is all for Three Waters because he has to be.
Sure.
He's signed up to Labour. He's got no choice. So he will toe that party line. So he's yes. The rest of us are no.
Okay. Hey, look, let's get into the important issue of the day. I mean, Three Waters might be an interesting thing to talk about, but tonight at the event, was this actually it was a public event? It was a debate. One of the candidates faced a drive-by egging. I was trying to figure out what this was. So this is someone's recorded this on Zoom. So this was a live event that was Zoomed, and someone's recorded the Zoom event. And there seemed to be a little bit of an interaction between the candidate and someone in the crowd. I'm going to play a little bit of this, and then we'll ask you about it because you were there. But you're named in the article, perhaps getting a bit of splatter from the drive-by as well. We'll have a look at this.
Spend on your wish list, you spend on your necessities. Yeah, Team Afiso, can you please be quiet? I mean, at least my friend Leo fights his own battles, so just calm down, right? There you go. Keep it up, Team Afiso. Anyway, listen, back to our point. Calm down, people. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay.
And at some stage,
okay, calm down.
at some stage, very, very shortly, he gets hit by an egg or two. Hits by an egg, and the moderator is Jack Tame, and Jack Tame comes in.
I tell you what, looks like Labor's getting scared of the job I'm doing. Yeah, sure.
Okay, just take it. We're just going to take a minute. Just take a minute. I know you can carry on. Let's all just take a minute. So I think Ted has made an ignorant comment through ignorance.
Which ignorant comment is that? We don't know that, do we?
Just let me speak for a moment. I'll
sure,
explain what happened in a minute. There's been a misunderstanding. I'm going to speak on behalf of Ted and say that I think we are on the benefit of the doubt and hope that if he'd known the situation, he would have made.
And they go, well, you don't hear it off screen though. Then Jack Tame, you can watch it in the background there. Jack Tame kind of puts his face to the side, hides him away, and this bit here we don't hear it. But what he's saying is he informs the candidate that the person had Tourette's and was obviously ticking within the room, and there wasn't a good response to it. And it wasn't the man who had Tourette's. I think it was a man. It sounded like, but the person who had Tourette's who egged him. It was someone else who then bolted. So that's what we've heard. Kind of breaking news. You were there. You're a part of the story, Craig. Tell us what else happened.
That was it. I heard the ticks early on, and I initially at the very beginning of the meeting, I thought, someone's got their cell phone got an odd text notification system because it was whistles. But they went on, and it only took me probably a couple of minutes at the beginning of the meeting to go, hang on, someone here has Tourette's. You could just tell. And so I was like, yep, fine. And I think everyone in the crowd had worked it out pretty quickly as well. It was just a little whistle. It was no big deal. It wasn't one of the ones where there's a lot of verbal words coming out and stuff. It was just simply a very light tick. Unfortunately, Ted did not realize that. So because it was going on while he was talking, and all of us, he thought it was one of the other candidates' ring-ins making noises to upset him. So he had a verbal spat, not realizing what was actually happened or was going on. Then, of course, half the audience started verbally attacking the candidate back, who still didn't realize what was going on. And then the interesting part happened. Someone walked down the steps of the auditorium and pulled something out of their pocket and took aim at Ted and launched it. Probably needs a little bit more baseball practice. It was a pretty lame throw, but it skimmed off the side of Ted's jacket and hit the wall behind him. I saw the person coming, and I thought, this person's coming down to have a face-to-face with Ted. But it ended up being a egg to face. So it was a drive-by egging. Egg to Ted. Had another egg in the pocket. Had a launch at that one. Unfortunately, I was on the other side of Ted. So it went flying past Ted, and I saw it coming. So I lifted my arm up, and it got me square on my jacket. So it splattered all over me. So I got peripheral fault. What do they call it when the army
collateral
people? Collateral damage. Yes. So I was collateral damage.
Collateral yoke.
So Ted made a big error. I didn't realize what he was doing. Okay, so there's both sides of it you could argue against. And he did apologize once he realized what was going on. But the egg person bolted big time. yeah. I think the egg person also realized that they got me accidentally and realized, oops, and took off. But the thing is, there's intent there, eh? I mean, you don't come
Yeah,
to a
you
meeting with
turn up with
raw
eggs.
eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had an intention to use them. You were just looking for a reason, and Ted gave the reason. Yeah.
And was Ted okay at the end? Did you guys like? I mean,
Oh.
like when you come off a stage, sometimes you converse with the people you're on with. Sometimes you just leave. Did you guys say anything afterwards? Was there any conversation going on?
No, he bolted pretty quickly.
Right.
I think he read the room. Look, he's actually a very, very bright
Oh,
man.
hang on. He read the room, but about 3 chapters too late.
Yeah. Look, he's a quite a high up barrister.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
also
God.
got, I think he's got 3 degrees, so he's not a fool.
Yeah.
But he just initially got that wrong. It turned to custard. No, eggs make custard.
Yeah,
It turned to custard, and it didn't go down well from there. So unfortunately, yeah, that's the second time I've been assaulted in a month or so. Yeah.
It's I mean we do have our tongue in our cheek slightly with this because it seems a bit humorous, but actually it does raise a very small question about security at these kinds of events and your guys' safety. I mean, an egg, whatever, but something else, something harder, a cricket ball with a seam. Those seams can leave quite a bruise. But is there ever any questions or concerns for candidates around security and safety?
Nah, I've never even thought of it before. It's not something I've ever normally, because the kind of people that go to a mayoral debate are not generally, you wouldn't think, the kind of people. But okay, this time there was it was a uni event, so yeah, you're going to have activists, and an activist did decide to turn up for a certain reason, or whatever that was. But they found a reason to use the eggs. So yeah. No, I've just never ever thought about. Maybe I should hire a security. It'll give the impression,
or at least next time take a frying pan.
I need a better defense. A tennis racket would have been the wrong call.
Yeah.
But a frying pan is probably a better defensive weapon. Yes.
Hey, Craig, I contacted you at 10 to 10. You said, yep, you'll jump on. So thank you for it. So, thank you for coming on. There's your site if people want to check out more about it. CraigLord.nz, Lord without an E. I think Lord with an E is Flasher. Lord without an E is yours. CraigLord.nz.
Grassroots, mate.
But it was cool to chat, man. It was cool to chat. Thanks for coming on board and having a bit of a chinwag, and good luck for your endeavors. And we'll be watching the results from down here in the deep south for Auckland to see what happens with you guys. In the second weekend in October, I believe.
Yeah, I think around the country. Yeah, by 9th of October, everyone in the country will have a new electoral people and some returning people. I don't know. Tim Shadbolt for South, will he go back? I don't know. So there's going to be all sorts of changes going on around the country on the 9th of October.
All right, cool. Craig, all the best, mate. Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye, boys. See you later.
There you go. See you later. It's Craig Lord, Auckland mayoralty candidate. And Kookie says, pat down, pat crunch. There you go. That's how you do it. A couple of messages that came in. We kind of started talking a little bit about weather and stuff there. People are talking about that. It's wet and palmy. Politikiwi saying of the North Dunedin situation, the Studentville right next to the campus has been warned to prep for evacuation. So that's in Dunedin. Kookie also says Avon had blocked 3 lanes this morning. So, yep, there is weather around the country. Some of it not so amazing. If you are watching us live and you want to be a part of the show, you can, of course, comment like you just have, or you can jump onto our Discord. Or if you jump into our Discord and you want to have a chat with us, then you just drag yourself into the waiting room, and at some stage through the night, we will probably get a chance to come across and say good day to you if you want to do that. It's only our second night using Discord, so if you want to jump in, and if you don't, well, it's all good. It's all good, brothers and sisters. What do you reckon, George? Actually, just the only serious question in that whole conversation really was the security thing. Is it anything that the mayors need to be worried about? I mean, like when we think about security, I think when it comes to politicians, we immediately default to the worst case scenario in America. But in New Zealand, is it something that needs to be thought about?
No, it's just eggs and dildos, isn't it?
And is it the people or the things they're throwing? Or your dildo, or your egg? Could be. I don't know. Hey, let's have a look at, it's a really, I find this to be a really interesting story. On some level, it's a bit of a meh story. On another level, it kind of speaks a little bit back to this idea that we've talked about for a couple of weeks about the optics of politics. Yeah, the optics of politics is sometimes more important. Now, I don't mean substantively, the substance of it, but I mean the optics of politics is something that people vote on and people understand what's going on. The optics is like the narrative of politics and what a political party or a political figure is trying to say. So last week when we talked about Jacinda Ardern taking her mask off for that photo with all those young MPs, the optics of it were terrible because the optics were there is a prime minister who was asking us all to wear masks when she can't be asked herself. That's the optics, even if it was literally 10 seconds and even if it wasn't a particularly risky maneuver, but the optics of it were bad. Now, Christopher Luxon today has put out the optics of this, of a story today where at its most simple, it's not that big a deal. It's actually really not what has happened or what everyone seems to be jumping up and down about, which we'll play in a second. But the optics of the broader situation speak to someone who maybe is trying to have a foot in both camps of, you know, I'm every man, I'm the working man, and oh, by the way, I think I'm a bit of a millionaire as well on the side. I don't know if he actually is, but he probably is because he was getting paid millions and millions of dollars to CEO for New Zealand. I don't have no idea what his net worth is. And he doesn't seem to want to be owning that side of who he is, but that's who he is, a man with extreme wealth and privilege. And I don't use that word privilege as in, you know, an unearned privilege. He's worked and he's earned and he's got money and he's, you know, yada, yada, yada. But the optics of what happened today, I think we're a bit deeper than what a lot of the media are talking about. So let's have a look at the story first of all. I'm sure you've all heard it, but it's about the apparent desire to demonstrate that he was in the Bay of Plenty with factory workers when he was holidaying with his family in Hawaii.
Rugged coastlines, white sandy beaches, sun, warmth. Hawaii is a hula of a time.
Hula!
National leader Christopher Luxon's just got back.
I went to Hawaii with my family, as I tend to do in July.
Te Puke is also very lovely with its giant kiwi fruit, but it's not Honolulu, which is where Luxon was when this was posted.
Hey everyone, listen, today I'm in Te Puke, the heart of kiwi fruit country.
Luxon says it was his team who put up the post, which made it look like he was in kiwi fruit country.
Let's just, this is the first part of it, because a lot of people are jumping up and down because it was like, he said he was in Te Puke and he was in Hawaii. I don't think that's I personally, I mean, maybe George, you may differ, so jump in if you want. Well, you can, but I'm saying if you disagree with me, shout it out. Because, you know, I watch the rugby on a Sunday morning sometimes, like it's a replay on Sky Sport, and it says kickoffs in 5 minutes. It actually wasn't. It was the day before, but the recording says it's live, but it's not live. So to say today I'm in Te Puke, actually when he recorded that, it was the day and he was in Te Puke. This thing, when this goes out, we'll be saying it's Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? No, it's Tuesday. We'll be saying it's Tuesday, even if you're listening to it on a Wednesday. So I don't think that's such a big part of this. And I actually think some people are missing, I don't want to be patronizing, but I feel like some of the media are missing the actual, the more important side of this. It's not that there was a post that went up that said, hi, I'm in Te Puke today. Because to be honest, if you've got a social media team, typically you'll get them the video. They might take a day or two to put it together and then put it up. And it says, hi, today I'm in Te Puke, and you're not there that very day. But the second part of the conversation around him not almost secretly and not wanting to let people know he was in Hawaii, the optics of that says to me someone who's trying to not kind of put their wealth in front of the public eye, not wanting to say, you know, we can do this easily and comfortably business class in New Zealand because we've got the access to that. That's what I think is the big part of the story, which we're going to get into. But before we do that, George, anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, that makes sense. People, you know, yeah, the temporality and all that, things getting recorded, that all makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, but it seems that in the media, the conversation is like, how dare they put up a post that says today I'm in Te Puke when he wasn't in Te Puke on that day? I don't think that's...
They love it. They love it.
Yeah, I don't think that's the story. And I guess what I always want to try and do is, even though sometimes these make for interesting conversations, it's actually the layer below the clickbaity stuff that is the interesting thing. And I think the interesting story here is how Luxon seems to be uncomfortable with the excesses he's able to live with because of his wealth. And I think that's a problem for him. And I'll say this, John Key, love him or hate him, I remember him telling a story about canvassing for votes in Helensville. And he told a story about he'd go to one house and he'd knock on the door, and the person says, "Oh, you're that millionaire guy, eh?" And John Key was like, "Yep." And the guy goes, "I'm never going to vote for a millionaire," and he slams the door. And he goes to the next house and it sounds like I'm telling a joke, knocks on the door, and the person kind of asks the same question, "Oh, you're that millionaire guy?" And John Key goes, "Yep." And he goes, "Oh, good, I'm going to vote for you. Finally, someone who knows what they're doing in business." And so the thing that John Key did was he owned it. You know, he talked about, well, I don't know if he talked about, but it was very common in public knowledge about his $5 million apartment in Hawaii, that he was worth $50 million. None of that was hidden. And he was like, well, this is me. I've got this money. I'm this wealthy. Now I want to be your prime minister. Whereas it seemed Luxon is not doing that. And so the optics of this are him saying, look at me, I'm hanging with the workers in Te Puke whilst he's, drinking pina coladas and holidaying in Hawaii. So I don't think the optics are good. And I think it's an interesting situation where Luxon seems to be uncomfortable with publicly acknowledging the privilege that he has due to his wealth. That's what I think the story is in this, for me at least anyway. Let's keep going.
When he was actually there 2 weeks ago.
We made a mistake, and we own up to it. We front it. We should have captioned the post differently.
I definitely think he could have gotten rid of the pineapples for kiwi fruit.
The local Te Puke golf course says perhaps Luxon should have had his holiday where he said he was.
Why not? It's the kiwi capital of the world. The weather is always fantastic and there's lots of attractions around the area.
I think it's really important you get a break with your family, and one of the ways to do that in this job is outside the country.
So it wasn't just the one Facebook post, but several across the week, all making it look like Luxon was here working, all the while he was actually in Hawaii.
I'm not losing sleep over this. I am losing sleep over the rising cost of living.
I think a post that says...
but again, the rising cost of living, fine, pivot, but he has to also then understand now that people are going, yeah, the rising cost of living that you can afford and we can't. So that's the thing about not owning it. And look, there's nothing about his holiday that I necessarily disagree with. I think if you're a high profile figure within a country and only within the country, then yeah, you probably do have to go offshore to get a proper break. No problems with that. No problems with him going. None of those things. It's purely this idea that for me, it looks like he's trying to run away from the appearance of opulence, which is a part of his life due to his wealth. I'm like John Key owned it. I'm like, own it. And I think it would actually go better for him.
You're in Te Puke on a particular day, published on a day when you're actually in Hawaii, is misleading.
Te Puke tour video also caused a bit of a stir because the only mask in sight was on Luxon's chin.
In the National Party, we follow the rules that are set down by the government.
Now, let me just say, that's a change. Because if you're with us last week, what he said was, we are guided by our hosts and we do what they want us to do. That's what he said last week, until some of us in the media, and I do like... I do it for views comments. Mainstream media are worse at clickbaiting than YouTubers nowadays. Got to chase those views, drama at any cost. Because as we pointed out last week, and I think some other people did as well, when he was in Singapore with that infamous photo where all his hosts were masked and he wasn't, that seemed to be contrary to his point that they follow the host's rules. So I think now that he's been caught out in a contrary statement, I won't use the L word because I'm not saying it definitely is, that he's now already defaulted from what he said last week about the Te Puke visit, which was we go by what our hosts say, to this week saying we go by what the government says. So there's already been a pivot there to explain it away why he wasn't wearing a mask. Maybe he just doesn't want to wear a mask. Again, I would say if you don't want to wear a mask, just own it. Be honest and own it. Don't try and find a story that you then have to change when it's proven beyond reasonable doubt that story doesn't make sense because of other things you've done on camera.
Masks aren't mandated, but public health officials are begging Kiwis.
Always wear a mask in an indoor environment outside of your home.
You didn't want to lead by example of best mask practice.
Well, I said to you really clearly, as the National Party, we follow the rules that are set down by the government and we encourage people to wear masks where it's practical.
Masking, practically impractical at a logging factory.
Well, kia ora, Amelia. How much of an issue is Christopher Luxon's misleading post?
None. The misleading post is none.
Yeah, it's not the holiday. He has a massive job, and sometimes the only way to escape it is to get out of the country. But the optics of this aren't great. It makes it look like his team were trying to cover up that he was quietly taking a break from prosecuting the cost of living crisis by having a holiday in Hawaii. It's probably also not the way that Christopher Luxon wanted to start the week of a sitting block here at Parliament. He has a plan for an inquiry into the Reserve Bank's money printing, and instead he's been talking about his Honolulu headache.
Absolutely. So the optics of it are terrible. Cost of living. And of course, whilst you're probably having $17 pina coladas in Hawaii, whilst trying to hide away from the idea that you can afford that. So this is what he said. Today I'm in Te Puke, the heart of Kiwi free country. Again, just not to freak you out, we put clips out from the show and sometimes they're not live. Just saying. So if I say in any of those clips, thanks for joining us on a Tuesday night and it's a Wednesday, that's because they've been recorded on a different day that we've put them out. So that's not, in my opinion, the story, right? I've said that 4 times now. He got a little bit of stick as well. And this is a bit hard to hear, so I'll turn it up and see if you can. As soon as he stood up in the House today, one of the backbenchers for Labour said, "I thought you were in Te Puke." So you can see if you can hear it in the background there.
Question number 3, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is
I thought it was in Te Puke. Now, just to reiterate this, to wrap up this part of what I'm saying about how, in my opinion, the story is about how Christopher Luxon doesn't want to seem to own his wealth, and especially in a time when New Zealand, because New Zealand is hurting and New Zealanders are hurting, cost of living, he said it, gas prices, all those things, and he doesn't want to push in our faces that he has the ability to fly off and spend tens of thousands of dollars on a holiday at a whim, as he does every July, like he says. I just wanted to play back for you something that we played at the end of April, Tova O'Brien on Today FM. She made it clear how uncomfortable Christopher Luxon is talking about his wealth when she actively wanted to talk to him about his wealth. Have a listen to this. And this is just to reiterate the idea that he hasn't owned it and he doesn't seem to want to own it publicly, which I think is a mistake.
And you personally don't need that tax cut because you made a good wicket, didn't you, in your last gig? How much did you earn as CEO of Air New Zealand?
It's not relevant, Tova. I don't know, but the bottom line is, I've just said to you, I'm in a very successful, fortunate situation, and the reality for us is that when we come to the election, we'll have a very comprehensive tax policy that will make sure that we, in a fiscal costed plan, and it'll be very clear for everyone.
It is relevant because it speaks to how much people on much, much higher incomes would be getting with your tax cuts than those on comparatively lower incomes. So as CEO of Air New Zealand, I think the last sum I saw was about $4.6 million that you were earning. So how big would Air New Zealand CEO Chris Luxon's tax cut be on that $4.6 million salary that you were on?
Tova, all I'm saying to you is, look, we've got a short-term tax policy, which we've been really clear about. Common sense, inflation adjusted, help squeeze middle people today. What we've also signalled to you is that when we get to government in our first term, we'll look to unwind some of the tax increases the government has put forward.
Yeah, and I want to know what that means for millionaires versus a nurse.
And fiscal policy.
I want to know what that means for a millionaire versus... Well, if you got rid of the 180K tax threshold, your tax cut as CEO of Air New Zealand would be $270,000. More than $250,000. Does that seem right to you?
Well, we have a progressive tax system, Tova. We have the top 3% of New Zealanders paying 24% of income tax, and we have the top 9% paying 42% of all income tax. They pay a higher proportion of their salary in tax than people in lower incomes. That's the way our system is set up.
Your CEO tax cut would get you $270,000 versus a nurse who gets $800. So riddle me how that is fair. Why are you getting rid of that upper tax threshold?
And as I said to you, Tova, when we come
there you go. And then they continue on. But I wanted to just kind of put out there one time this idea of, I don't know, I like the optics of it are if you were Christopher Luxon's political advisor, I think what you'd be saying is you need to own this and you need to go, I've been where I remember Stephen Merchant. You know Stephen Merchant, George? He's a comedian. He wrote The Office, Ricky Gervais. He does a stand-up routine where, because he's 6'7", yeah? And he goes, I'm 6'7", you know, and he goes, anyone taller than 6'7"? And no one in the crowd says yes. And he goes, that means at some stage in my life, I've been all of your heights, you know, and now I'm the tallest in the room. That's one of his things he does to start a show. There'd be nothing wrong with Luxon going, I've been where everybody is, so I know what it's like. And right now, yeah, I earn $4.6 million a year in New Zealand, but that doesn't mean I can't relate to when I was a student or when I was this or when I was that, but just kind of pretending it's not there and pretending it's like, I don't want to talk about this, then what's going to happen is people, great journalists like Tova, and that was a great interview she did, are going to hone in on that and go, but hang on, if you're not going to talk about this, we want to know why. And I think why he doesn't want to talk about it is because he can't figure out a way to relate to New Zealanders having a cost of living crisis issue whilst being someone who that's never going to be a part of his life. He's never going to have to worry about filling the car with gas. He's never going to have to worry about flying overseas. He's never going to have to worry about the cost of cheese. And I don't know whether they've figured out how to sell that package yet. Maybe the difference with John Key was it wasn't quite, the economy might have been doing better at that time. So it was easier to aspire to be a millionaire if that's what some people wanted to do. And you didn't have to go, but he's never going to struggle and I am. Whereas maybe more New Zealanders are struggling right now. I don't know. What are your thoughts, George?
But yeah, we know from the Guy and Espiner profile that we looked a little bit into, that sort of long form sit down that Guy and Espiner did with old Chrissy Poo, what's his name, Mr. Luxon, that he almost states it as if he's not actually from New Zealand, that he came back to New Zealand after his sort of escapades in international finance and, you know, cutting the budgets of companies and selling them on or whatever it was that he was doing to make money, that he was anxious about New Zealand's attitudes to millionaires, to people who have money. So he's always come up at it from that position. It seems that he feels funny about it. Whereas John Key, sort of as Carl put it pretty well here as well. I'll show this comment. Carl says, quote, he's too far removed from normal people to realise his era. John Key had a way of coming across as an everyman made good. Luxon always comes across as a elitist, especially with the buzzwords in corporate.
Do you know anything about Mr. Luxon's background? Like, I know that John Key was raised in a solo mum, and, you know, so you can hear that his story probably has had hardship during his life. And I know that from perhaps we're becoming politically, the idea of, and he pulled himself up by his bootstraps and he got on with it, may not be an accurate story for many who have got that kind of wealth, as opposed to, you know, backroom hand dealings and, you know, other people suffering for it. But
yeah,
still,
that's a story they make up to.
Yeah, but I'm saying John Key probably could literally. I mean, I know I got friends who had solo mums. They always talk about, you know, we had one chicken wing that my mum turned into a stew. Like, John Key probably has those stories from his childhood. I don't know what Luxon's background is, whether he does or he doesn't. Because if he doesn't, maybe that's another reason he finds it hard to relate. Maybe if he comes from affluence, or if he comes from, you know, even middle classness, maybe that's another reason he doesn't celebrate his wealth. John Key celebrated his wealth. He celebrated his financial successes. It doesn't seem that Luxon wants to do that.
Yeah. And John Key was one of those people that got sort of touched by the hand of God. They got swept up in the financialization of the world's economy and made heaps of money off it. Yeah. He was in the right place at the right time, and that's our rags to riches story.
Let me just say something else, which is more about the I'm just writing it down to make sure I don't forget it, because that's what I do. I'm a squirrel. Like, I'm a dog chasing a squirrel. I have a thought in my head, and when I'm doing podcasts and stuff, I'm writing notes about the thing I've just thought of. Because if I don't, I'll be listening to someone, I'll be going, oh, fuck, what did I had a really good question and it's gone out of my head. You hear people on the right in particular talking a lot about progressive tax rates. Progressive tax rates this, progressive tax rates that. Not to patronize anybody watching, because I'm sure you all know this, but basically what it means is, if you give a tax rate that goes, you know, that goes to the under 50,000 earners, then the people who are on $1 million still get that tax cut, but only for their first $50,000. So it progresses through the rankings. Yeah. But what is the lie that the right will tell us? Is they're like, well, yeah, you know, the top 3% of earners pay 24% of the tax. Now, the reason that's a lie is not because mathematically it's incorrect. But let's imagine, George, you and I were the only earners paying tax, yeah? And I earned $1,000 and you earned $100. And out of that $1,000, I paid $100 in tax. And out of your $100, you paid $50 in tax, right? I'd be paying twice as much tax as you. So I could say, well, I pay 66% of the tax in the situation, you know? So, you know, I pay more than my fair share, but I still have $900 left over to spend, whereas you only have 50. So this idea that the top 3% pay so much more in tax, it's a misleading statement, because unless you know exactly what that means for them and how they, I guess the inflationary issue for this, the way that their money is then spent. If you've got $1 million and you pay $250,000 in tax, you're far better off than someone who's on $30,000 and pays $8,000 in tax, even though you're paying much more tax. So don't let them get that one past you if you hear them talking about how much tax is paid by the top 2, 3, 10%. The reason for that is because they can afford it and it doesn't impact them as much as those down the bottom who have very little and pay small amounts of tax. Just so we're clear on that little side note. Right. Well, should we stay in politics for the time being? We got 20 minutes. So I only gave a time check. Shit, I got back into my
I noticed that. Yeah.
into my freaking radio
When in
days.
doubt, give a time.
It's 19 minutes to the top of the hour. Some messages that have come in. Carl says, what you don't understand, Tova, is that poor people don't earn enough to get a massive tax cut. What else we got? Did I put this one up before? Or just another good comment from I Do It For You. They're all the same. I remember when Jacinda was asked about the price of milk and cheese and she quoted prices from 10 years ago. They all have no idea. And I think that's right. I think that's right on some level, that they all have no idea. But own it. I mean, I wouldn't expect the Prime Minister today to know what a bottle of milk is, because I wouldn't expect the Prime Minister to be in the fucking supermarket buying a bottle of milk. You know, I in fact, you know what? The Prime Minister is taking 2 hours out of her day to go supermarket shopping. I'd rather she didn't, to be honest. I'd rather she focused on nationwide and international issues that might help me and help you and
like
help
the
the
price
country.
of milk.
Like the price of milk. Gosh, Carl's a star tonight. Losing sleep over the rising cost of living while being on holiday in Hawaii. It just smacks of inauthenticity.
Carl needs to be a new
The
co-host, I reckon.
The
Jump
inauthenticity.
on the Discord sometime, Carl.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like John Key saying, "I'm worth $50 million and I've got a $5 million, holiday home." And for some people, they hate that because they're like, "Oh yeah, you big noter." But it's him being authentic. It's him actually just owning who he is. And I said it 5 times now. I think Luxon's trying to run away from who he is on some level when it comes to his income, his wealth. David says that, and the fact that the number of New Zealanders who would love to travel just to see loved ones but cannot afford it, or due to COVID can't risk it. Yeah. So that's why it feels like that maybe the trip to Hawaii was a bit of a secret. And so that's why I'm saying to you really clearly, I don't think that video wasn't from today is actually the big part of the story. I think the optics around why there was a secret trip to Hawaii is actually the big part of the story. Tell me if I'm wrong, though, in the comments or in Discord. You're welcome to jump on and share some thoughts there. Let's stick with politics, because actually it's the same news item we watched earlier, but in that news item, they wrapped up the conversation at the end, talking a little bit about this crazy, I think it's a bit of a debacle, but the situation with the Greens leadership. Are there any Greens voters watching right now? Fire us a message. What do you think is going on at the moment? We'd actually really like to know from the members, like a Green Party member, what the hell is going on.
Yeah, so far it's been a pretty bloodless coup. After James Shaw was ousted on Saturday, backbencher Elizabeth Kirikiri said she was considering her options but confirmed this morning that she won't be standing. There are murmurings that another backbencher, Tiano Tuiono, might be putting his hat in the ring, but he's not responding to messages either way. So far, the only applicant for James Shaw's old job is James Shaw.
Amelia.
It's just the Tiano Tuiono, don't know too much about him. So what it seems like at the moment is the membership of the Green Party have kind of given James Shaw a vote of no confidence. Well, if I can put it that way, they might not be correctly the complete correction. But certainly haven't put him back in as leader, as co-leader.
So before an election, the Green Party have an AGM
Yep.
where they decide, is this our nominee or are we going to open up nominations? That's technically what's happened. And
so they haven't wanted James Shaw to be the nominee.
They need 75% of the delegates, which is in this case is members and caucus, to vote. We want the current leadership individually to continue and run for election as the leader. They didn't get the 75%. I think 30 something out of the. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Here's the actual thing.
Yeah.
32 out of the 107 delegates voted at the party's online annual general meeting to vacate Shaw's position, more than 25% threshold necessary under the Greens rules. So yeah, that's the technically.
So did you say 32 out of 107 voted to vacate it?
They voted let us open up the nomination process. Yes.
So therefore, that there enough of whatever their quota is of voting it against, but that basically means, I mean, I said they're showing no confidence in him. I mean, maybe as I said, I used the wrong term, but if they were confident with James Shaw, then they would have voted to keep him in because they kept Martima, didn't they? Martima is still.
I think what's significant about what I was explaining is that it's a sort of it's not the coup that the news media think.
Right.
It wasn't sort of sprung. The results were sort of sprung, and James Shaw has said that he's surprised, but it was part of the pre-election process of basically a party that sort of values its members' input, saying, hey, what do you guys reckon? Should we open up nominations for our leader, or should we go to the election with this leadership group?
So they've said, yes, let's go to the election with Martima Davidson. And they've said, let's open up the other one.
Yeah.
So it's not the majority. It's actually very close to him getting in, because I don't know what the percentage of 32 out of 107 is, but it's not that far off 70. What do they have to be? 75%. Shall I look, shall I? 32 divided by 107 is, so that's 70 to 71% of people supported it. So he missed out by 4%. But the thing that seems to be a bit of a, and I use the word debacle, but you know, it's just bloody weird, is that the delegates, or whatever mathematical equation of the delegates, the members of the conference, have said no to that position. We want to open that position up. And now the only person who's putting their hand up to have that position is James Shaw. So it feels to me, and these words might be wrong, but it feels to me that enough of the membership of the meeting have said no to James Shaw, showed no confidence in having him continue on, and now he's going to be potentially the one standing unopposed, that those people are going to then have to go, well, he's our leader. I wonder how that vibe's going to go through the Green Party if that ends up being what happened.
There's an indication that it exactly wasn't an organised coup, because no one's come out to say they're going to challenge him. And by the way, one of the members could. It doesn't have to be a caucus member. It doesn't have to be a member.
It doesn't have to be an MP. Yeah, good. Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess the other thing is, and then with no disrespect to any other MP, I mean, if you look at the people of the Green Party, the MPs that are there, not the delegates or the members, you know, who would be the next MP? Who would be the next leader? I mean, I said this, I think, last night, is that there's commentary out there at the moment, and it's just commentary, it may not be right, that James Shaw is probably one of the best, if not the best, kind of politician in the Greens. So it seems that he's possibly a natural fit for that. I don't know. It just seems weird that they say no to you, and then they're going to have to possibly say yes to you when it's the same person. That's why it's a bit bizarre to me, the whole system. I wonder sometimes if an authoritarian hand might be a bit better for some of these, you know, these people. Just wondering.
Well, they've purposely made the party so that the members have much more of a say than in other parties.
If I wonder what happens, does this article say anything?
Which is good, because there's obviously, you know, some sort of discontent, some disagreement with James Shaw.
I mean, is it good? I mean, should 30%?
Yeah.
should 30% be able to stop something from going through? 70% of 70% of anything is a supporter of something. To have the 30% stop it.
All they've done is opened up the next process.
I got it.
In terms of nomination. So you're not going to get 30% deciding who becomes leader.
No, I'm clear. I'm clear. But if 70% of people say they want to not open up the membership, that's a pretty high number to then go the 30% can decide to open it. I mean, if it was like 59-41, I'd go fair enough. But see, it's just quite a high bar. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just observing the number. It's quite a high bar to be able to stop it. It's a low bar to be able to stop it, but a high bar to not get through. So I'm interested in how that all works. I mean, if any political party in New Zealand ever had 70% support in anything, they'd run gangbusters over the whole country forevermore. So, all right. Yeah. Someone I read a that was flying through saying someone that said they were a Green Party member. Here we go. Oh, it's Political Kiwi. Green member here. Infighting is nothing new. It is generally more openly visible because of the nature of their internal politics. This is more of a warning shot at Shaw, which got media attention.
Yeah, there's a divide within the Green Party against the sort of moderate angle of James Shaw and dissatisfaction with him and this coalition government that we have. I mean, like, I'd prefer a Green Party leader that, like, this was pretty funny. Speaking of Luxon before.
Yep.
A decision for them and their party. All I'd just say is James Shaw is someone I respect a lot. I consider him a friend.
So you're going to say because he respects him, it should negate him from being the leader? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah. See, I fucking hate this.
I've always appreciated his collaborative approach and the way that he actually works with trying to get party consensus.
Yeah.
What about what Tyler's got to say? Some background information for us. Tuiono's got an interesting background. He was a radical youth back in the aughts. Cool group, real deal socialists. He would have the interest of socialists outside the Greens. It goes on to say, but important to remember, that's a very small ecosystem of people and groups.
I still feel like, and I'm not an expert on this Green Party internal stuff, but there was like Maturia Ture left a sort of should be sort of perfect in terms of the fact that we're talking about a block of Green Party members that are leaderless or at the moment.
Yeah.
Right? And they've sort of done this thing where they're like, oh shit, now what do we do? As you say, Pat, Shaw's just gonna, get nominated again and become leader again. But there was that is an indication of, I think, like this sort of economically left part of the party that are sort of fed up with the James Shaw direction of it. But yeah, I don't know. We'll dig deeper into it. Chloe Swalbrook said she won't run for leader. Most of the caucus has said they won't run. A few comments from Marama Davidson. Seems like she kind of was just let's bring it up so that I don't have to explain how she was reacting to this.
Do you think the delegates who voted to reopen nominations had any real strategy here? Because no one's come forward.
I'm not certain on what the strategy is because we haven't heard from them all directly. You will have to see if you can speak to them directly. But I'm also not dismissing.
So maybe a little bit of a lack of sympathy there for the people who have triggered this.
Right, yeah.
And
Go talk to them about
strategy.
it. They've made the decision.
Along with that sort of getting a bit pissed off with the media trying to make a thing out of this as well. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It is a thing. It is a thing because the thing is strange that there is discontent within the group, enough of the group to warrant looking to see if there's a change, and if there is a change, it's been actioned by a very small percentage of the group. And if there's not a change, what does that say about the membership of the group? And will that just continue to cause discontent amongst them?
It's yeah. I mean, it's hard to have a big group of politically active people, especially when you give them a lot of power, as we've sort of found out with this looking into this thing. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either, and I mean, like it's not my kind of
Yeah, we don't know how to.
We talked about optics earlier, and we talked about optics last, but I wonder what the optics of this are. I wonder if anybody who is kind of fringe Green / Labour voter is like, fuck, that's a bit weird. I think I'll just stick with Labour. That kind of thing. You know, like, although, well, how can that minority of that thing, you know, make so much of an impact in that part? I don't know. I guess we can leave it there and go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be an ongoing thing. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to stretch that out. It is interesting to.
Yeah, no. Hey, let's wrap up tonight. We said we'd talk a bit about this one, and again, not to want to talk about too many sort of kind of what do they call it? Culture wars issues. But again, it's an issue that on the surface level looks kind of weird and a bit, you know, headliney. I said to George before we came on, those topics that kind of you can have on talkback quite a lot. Maybe they're topics that I'd prefer to avoid a little bit. Oh, you know, so should the Manly Seagulls wear a rainbow shirt? Give us a call now. 0800 talkback. But if you get these topics, it's a bit like the video with Luxon, and you go one step deeper, you can wonder some things like about the culture around these players and what it means and how we respond to it as well. So let's just play the story that I'm sure most of you have heard.
There's said to be an emergency meeting coming up soon between the Manly players and management. I was hearing earlier this afternoon that up to 7 players objected to the Pride jersey, and late today, 4 to 5 players were seriously considering not playing in the game against the Roosters this week. Now, it's going to develop even further, and the news coming out of the Manly club is they are likely to allow the players not to play, to honour their beliefs in this game. So that could be quite a significant development. Of course, that is still developing as we speak right now, James. And the reason for all of that is the Manly club did not consult their players before the jersey was initiated.
So there you go. That's the overall story.
They're said to be
one of the interesting things out of it is there's a guy called Ian Roberts. Ian Roberts was an incredible, oh gosh. Let's just pause that. Guy called Ian Roberts was like one of the hard men of Manly back in the late 80s, maybe into the early 90s. And he came out sort of mid 90s as gay, came out of the closet. I think it's pretty clear that he knew it all through his rugby league days, but there was an atmosphere of, you know, you can't do it as a Manly man. And if you come out as gay, that would have been uncomfortable for him and those around him. So he's considered one of the greats of the game. Seagulls great Ian Roberts, the first rugby league player to come out as openly gay, was left heartbroken by the player revolt. I try to see it from all perspectives, but this breaks my heart, Roberts said to the Daily Telegraph. It's sad and uncomfortable. As an older gay man, this isn't unfamiliar. I did wonder whether there would be any religious pushback. That's why I think the NRL have never had a pride round. I can promise you, every young kid on the northern beaches who is dealing with their sexuality would have heard about this. So when you see, so there's the jersey there. So if you don't know the Manly Seagulls, those stripes that are in rainbow colors, I think are normally just plain straight white. And there was a point made on the AM show this morning, which I think is really fair. These same religious people, and we've seen this before in things like Israel Folau when he was playing for the Australian rugby league team, and he sent out that infamous, what is this called? Instagram thing about drunks, homosexuals, adulterers, liars, fornicators, thieves, atheists, hate or words, only Jesus saves, calling on his religious beliefs. Yeah. There was a point made on the AM show this morning where they had a bit of a chat about it. I don't know if we're going to play that. Maybe we can play bits of it. But one of the points that was made is these people are happy to have a gambling agency across the front of their shirts. Now, I know a lot of religious people still are involved with a lot of religious people, and most religious people I know in that kind of world don't think gambling's a good thing. Now, they're happy to get paid and earn money and promote another part, which many would say is quite against their religion as well. But to support a community that warrants support, no, we won't have any of that. No, we won't have any of that. And I am extrapolating a little bit because no one has come out and said it's ardently against their religion, but I feel pretty certain that'll be the background behind this. George?
And that's sort of what Ian, what's his face, was alluding to.
Yeah, but we don't.
the
But we don't have that. But we haven't had these players come out and say, "Oh, it's against my religion." But it says reportedly opposed to wearing the jersey due to their religious beliefs. Can I say something? There is nothing anywhere at any stage in any religion about wearing that shirt that contravenes any religious beliefs. It's a fucking shirt with a rainbow color on that says we love a certain group of people. In fact, one could argue that the whole teaching of the religion that most of these guys probably follow is one of love. And the actual leader of that religion is called the Prince of Peace for a reason. And that is supposed to epitomize what love is. Basically going, fuck you guys. I'm not going to even acknowledge you. To me, it kind of feels like, and George, you know this for me, I struggled a little bit with the idea of, you're trying to deny my existence. People say this all the time. If you don't acknowledge me, you're trying to deny my existence. And I'm like, I think that's overused, that saying, quite a lot. I actually think this is probably an example of that. It's like, we don't even want to acknowledge that these people exist, that they live. We don't even want to say, be safe and well. We don't want to do anything. We want to literally have nothing to do for them. For some reason, they think if they wear that shirt, when I say they think, I won't even say that because maybe they're being disingenuous. They are putting forward that if they wear that shirt, it's going to cause damage to their religious beliefs, or it's going to promote something against their religious beliefs. And I would probably say they've got a very thin grasp on their religious beliefs, especially things like love one another as I've loved you, because that's certainly not the example that these people will be setting, in my humble opinion, in my honest held belief.
Yeah, I love the sort of discussion about the gambling and alcohol brands and that sort of thing. And I mean, as we know, sports people don't actually, all the time have much power in sponsors and that sort of thing of the club and that sort of thing. It's sort of interest. I thought that the club shirt was going to be like way more full on. But it's just like these little rainbows on it.
I wonder if I can have a look. I haven't followed Manly for a while. If I just put in there, what's their normal? We'll go to images and have a look at their normal. I think it's literally just replacing the white stripes. Yeah, there you go. There's the normal shirt there. So it's just literally replacing the white stripes with those. So it's that. And this is the thing, about religious people who think that this is going to send some kind of message. The message it's going to send is, we love you guys. We love you, kind of like you've been commanded to do. The message you're sending is, go fuck yourselves. We want nothing to do with you. You're revolting and I don't want to acknowledge you exist. That's the message you are sending, which I think is contrary to perhaps what you've been told the message you should be sending. Again, in my humble opinion. Darren says, I've always found this stuff cringe. I tend to agree. The NRL has had several weird controversies, from dog sex acts to violent acts to players pissing in each other's mouths. How is a rainbow a bridge too far? That's a very good point. I think that's a very good point. Because yes, there's been everything. There's something else. Look, it's absurd. So Tiger's kind of say to what we just said about the gambling. The player kit doesn't reflect the player's beliefs and what they do or don't support. I mean, there was a famous case where Sonny Bill Williams wouldn't wear a gambling thing across his shirt, and they allowed him to change his shirt because of his Muslim beliefs. But I think that probably, but also it probably did reflect his beliefs. I guess what I'm saying is, if you actually adhere to what the teachings are in that dusty old book, half of the sponsors you should probably not want to be involved with. But it's a little bit like we talk about David Seymour and the race issue, how he only ever seems to complain about the race issue. Well, it's funny how religious people are happy to kind of, accept all those other of the 7 deadly sins. They're okay with all those other parts, but this one, just won't abide by that one. But all the other ones, sweet ass, fine, no problem.
They say corporate sponsorship is just, that's just the way things are. Whereas, anything else that they can question.
Here we go. What does Tiger say? This shows of support is being done by the club. All the players are doing is choosing to wear their work uniform. This show of the sport has been done by the club. Correct. So the show of support. So for the rainbow thing, yeah, all the players are doing is choosing to wear their work uniform.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds horrible, and actually brings up another point about all this rainbow washing, I guess. But it's just like they're having another corporate sponsor on their club's uniform.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure that gambling place is happy to have a little rainbow next to them, because it gives them that cultural cachet.
Yeah, cool. All right, I think we're done. Thanks, guys, for joining us tonight. I appreciate your input. People are still going crazy as. I think the other thing, and we didn't end up playing it, but the AEM show, one of the points that was made is if it's in their contract that they have to wear it, then suck it up, buttercup. And if it's not, we probably can't force them to wear it. But again, not to bang on about the O word, optics, what this is saying to this, I mean, like the NRL is like any sports, professional sports, they will want as big a tent as possible to sell their merchandise to. This certainly won't be received well by the rainbow community, and probably will lose the NRL dollars, which probably is ultimately what should be driving the whole thing as far as the NRL is concerned, because it's a new jersey they could sell, you see. I also wonder if those players who want to not wear it anymore will suffer the backlash of fans. I don't know. Maybe they'll be confronted with a lot more rainbow support around the players that are basically saying no to it at the moment, or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, anything else, George? Or are we done?
No, that's all good.
I think we are done. Thank you for joining us tonight, everybody. That's another one. Another one for Simon says I saw
101.
The Manly Sea Eagles have sold out the rainbow jerseys. Well, that's good to know. Thanks for joining us tonight. That's us for another one. We'll be back tomorrow night from 10 p.m. Remember, we have our audio podcast going. If you want to subscribe to our audio podcast, just head to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, search for hashtag BHN or Big Hero News, and you'll find us. Subscribe to that. And it means that if you ever miss what we're doing, or if you miss a show, or you're going to catch half a show, then by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, it will be in your device, and you can listen to us on the way to work and get all the important updates on the very important issues like eggs being thrown at Mayoralty debates. All right, that's us. Thank you, George. Appreciate you. Thank you everyone for joining us and watching us. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 10. Hooroo!